Are you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics?
Then you're in the right place.
Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This
is the RoboZone podcast
with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 53rd episode of the RoboZone podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, March 20th. In this episode, we have another update from First for the rules for this year. We have another roundtable discussion with teams, with mentors from week 3, and lessons learned we've learned for Power Up thus far. Finally, we have Rookie Roundup and a Team of the Week. So, let's get started with First Update.
Now it's time for the first update.
Since our last podcast, Team Update number 17 has been released, and in that update, there were no updates, there were no changes, everything's running smoothly. So, as one of my favorite characters from an 80s movie said, party on, Garth.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
With me tonight, I have some of my favorites. So, Chris, we're going to start with you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris Purdy. I'm from Team 3534, the Davison House of Cards.
And our other person that's joining us tonight is Scott.
Hey, this is Scott Stap, Team FridgeBot from Corona.
So Scott has been on here quite a bit, and Chris has been on multiple times. So I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys. It's going to be kind of short tonight, to be honest with you, because I'm readying my team for this week. We're going into our first competition ever, so there's a lot of stress and stuff that's got to get done. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir to anyone that's listening to this podcast, but it's all unique to each individual. So I just want to pick your brains, get some mental notes for myself, and we'll move on. So, Chris, tell us how your team's doing so far this season.
I think we're doing really well. We went to Kettering week 2. I think we put in a solid qualifying effort. Probably didn't rank as high as we really wanted to. I think we finished like 23rd, something like that. But we were the first selection on the 5th Alliance. I think we did a good job in quarterfinals, and then lost in semis to Goodrich and team. But I think we had a really good event.
Scott, tell us how you guys did.
We were also at Kettering week 2, and we were the actual 4th Alliance captains. Had some interesting drama happen on the field during the Alliance selection, but that's past. We did great. For a relatively young team. Our team members are all early in their high school careers and did an excellent job. So that's the highest we've ever finished in a competition. 4th seeded Alliance there, captains there.
So all great progress for the teams, and I was out there watching you guys, so I was fairly impressed by both your teams, and hopefully my team can do as well. So, Chris, what do you think you guys learned from Kettering week 2? We did have a panel discussion last week, but I wanted to get you guys on this week to further that discussion. What do you think your team learned at Kettering week 2 that you guys can carry forward to your next competition?
Well, I think from my perspective, I actually learned a lot as a coach. I wasn't really sure how I was going to play the game. And I think after all the matches we went through, I finally got some clarity on how to direct my team as far as, there were a lot of matches where we were going for the scale. And then there were times when you realized that you needed to pull off and either defend your switch or go try and steal the switch. So I think that's one of the areas that we have a lot more clarity as a team, and I do as a coach. I think another interesting aspect is the randomness of the field, which side is blue or red, really dictates your vision from the different driver stations. And there's somewhat different approaches depending on how the field cycles, as far as when you can go down and play the other side of the field if you have the visibility.
That's something that we haven't discussed yet this season. So, Chris, I'm sure you have an auton for your robot. How do you guys deal with the FMS code to know where to, either dump into the switch or dump into the scale? How did you guys handle that this year?
We actually had a problem with our autonomous. We were super disappointed because we practiced tremendously with the Auton, and it worked great in practice. But what was happening to us was the FMS apparently sends the signal for what side the switches and the scales are on. It only sends it out once, and our robot apparently wasn't listening at the right time. So we either missed the signal completely or we picked it up partially. So we actually didn't get our autonomous to start reading the FMS until the last couple matches on Saturday. So we definitely didn't do as good a job there as we wanted to, and I think that was definitely one of the things that hurt our qualifying performance. But basically in practice, we're able to read the FMS, and because we're scale capable, if the scale comes up on our side, we always try to prioritize that first. And then our fallback position is to the switch. We definitely didn't try to take on moving to the opposite side of the field, left to right, but that's something we hope to get done by week 6 for sure.
And Scott, how did you guys do with your Auton and reading the FMS code?
We were able to read the FMS code okay. The robot didn't seem to miss it. So, but there was so many other things going on with their robots were going places. So we had to make ours fairly simple. Basically, we pulled ahead, determined if it was in our favor or not, either held the cube or switch. We weren't able to do the scale in autonomous.
And I think one of the things that I've witnessed, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong or give your opinion on it, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of talking with the alliance partners before you set your robots up for the Auton. So, Chris, did you run into that at Kettering Week 2 where the other alliances weren't telling you where they were going to line up and where they were going to put their cube?
Yeah, we did switch positions with a couple teams, but it was pretty rare. I think this year it was pretty easy for teams to understand that if you were on the left side, you wanted to move, straight forward, either down to the scale or to the end of the switch. And then if you were in the center position, you needed to have the logic to do a Y maneuver, either to the left and the right and load the switch from the side. So I think that's kind of the way that we went for it. We either ran into a lot of teams that could really only move forward to cross the line, which was just fine. And a lot of times they set up in the center, just slightly offset. And, we tried to take the left or the right. It seemed to work out. Like I said, I just wish our Auton had read the FMS better because in fact, we were watching the RoboZone TV show this morning, and there was a good video of our robot moving up to the switch, turning and lifting up to put the cube on. And then the program realized that the switch wasn't our color, and it stopped, thankfully. But it was heart-stopping moments for the driver watching our robot kind of make a fake attempt at putting the cube on the switch and then finally deciding that it was a bad idea.
Do you agree with me, or do you have an opinion of whether alliance partners are talking prior to their qualification matches or not?
I want to say that in previous years, we've actually seen more talking with teams. Just about every match you were coming up and you had the other team come up, or we would go to them and work out strategy of that next match. That yeah, I think you're right. It seemed to be less happening this year than in previous years, and I'm wondering if it's because of some of these Auton modes that they pretty much think we've got the Auton mode, and you just need to get out of our way. I'm not sure. But yeah, there was relatively few times where I saw the teams actually getting together up until the final matches, and we did sit down with the other teams before the final matches there and discuss strategy. We won one match, and then of course the opposing alliance won 2 matches, but our third match, the tiebreaker, one of our alliance partners their auton mode. They went forward and then turned to go through the middle of the field so that they could get the scale on the other side, and proceeded to push 4 blocks all the way across the field, thus getting us some penalties there. But that is the danger of doing an auton down through the middle and not having everything all worked out. So that was worked out beforehand that they were going to do that, and we were just going to do the switch.
So a couple other things I've been watching and making notes of, especially when we're at Kettering, is I think that communication, or that communication breakdown where the alliances aren't talking to each other, is more than just auton. I mean, we had robots that were going up onto the platform at the end that didn't need to be up there because they have levitate. I know that over multiple weeks that I've had mentors on here, they all say, listen, if you have levitate, the third robot doesn't need to be up there. And if trying to put 3 robots on that platform is, 1, hard, 2, not necessary if you have levitate, and 3, could push off, and we've seen it, other robots from doing their job trying to grab that scale. Did you see that in Kettering week 2, Chris?
Yeah, we sure did see that quite a lot. There were definitely a lot of mistakes at the end game. I think it's kind of human nature from the drivers to get really excited about the end game, and definitely there's a lot of mistakes with teams getting in the way while the 2 teams are trying to climb, or even just get parked. But I think another key benefit that we're going to see the later weeks we go into is, if you're playing the levitate, you should use those last 20 to 30 seconds to keep trying to score. You might be able to get another cube on the scale, or maybe protect your switch just a little bit longer, and they could be difference makers toward the end. So still a little unsure for myself, how we're going to play that. It's definitely quite a bit different from qualifications versus eliminations. When you have a stronger alliance and you're able to learn how to play together better.
Right. And Scott, you said that during eliminations, you guys, can talk and have a battle plan. And I know it's really hard during qualifications because there's so many teams running around, and you have to worry about breaking and then fixing and then get back into the thing. Hopefully some teams have large teams where the drive team is separated from the team that's fixing the robot. But in some instances, I think in all 3 of our teams, we have smaller teams. So it's one of those things where we have to fix things and then have to worry about trying to get that communication forward. So is there a better way to try to attack that, Scott, do you think?
We were in quarters 2, the quarterfinals. We were actually in the pit right next to the team that we were allied with, and they did have a break. And we were chucking parts over the wall. They're fixing their robot. You had a little bit of time there to actually repair the robots, but what wound up happening was there wasn't enough time to test it. So we got out for our match 3, and they had fixed a switch, but unfortunately the lack of that switch had done other damage. Now, where I see the communication breakdown was they were trying to do the scale. The robot was broken, but instead of saying, "Hey, you guys go over there and do the scale, and we'll start doing the low stuff that we can do with our broken robot," they just continued to try to do the scale by themselves. So there was a lack of communication back behind the wall also. And I even saw that in the human players in some instances. There was confusion between the teams as to what the human players were doing back there. So I definitely see a need for better communication all the way around. And I think as the season progresses, you'll see that get better.
And Chris, I have one more follow-up question for you. So I'm going to be a drive coach this coming weekend with my team, right? I'm the only mentor on the team, so I'm doing all the hats, right? So when is it appropriate for a drive coach to talk with all the individuals, or the drive coaches talk together about what the alliances want to do rather than the children? I know we all try to focus on trying to get the kids involved and get them to do a battle plan, but in the end, if it's the adults that have to do it, at one point do you put in your own opinion?
Yeah, that's always a tough challenge. I mean, there's there's teams that have really strong-willed coaches. I know for me personally, I like to play more of a, if somebody's strong-willed, we like to be a great partner. I think that's kind of a theme that we've always had. But I really try and let my kids work out a strategy. I think they understand, how they want to play the game, and typically what I'm doing is I'm listening for something that maybe a strategy that I know is not going to work, or if I have some sense that one of the alliance partners that is trying to say that they can uphold a part of the strategy, but I know that they probably can't, then I try and remind my kids about having a secondary or backup plan. I think definitely in this year's game, that's one of are going to be a key strategy by week 5 and 6, is that your straightforward way that you're going to play the game is going to break down at some point, because maybe somebody on the other alliance plays heavy defense on you, for example, or you score a lot and you actually start running out of cubes. Well, then you kind of need to have a fallback strategy or a second strategy to go back to that the teams understand. So at this point, I'm just trying to guide our kids to, make sure they have a good primary strategy, but also make sure that they understand the capability of the robots they're playing with, and know how to break off that strategy and take on a different task when you need to.
And Scott, do you agree? I mean, we're like, for instance, my team is going to Lansing for week 4, and we have 15 rookie teams at that event. So almost half of all the robots that are on the field are rookies. So there's going to be teams that have never played, such as ours. There's teams that have brand new mentors that have never done this before. So how do you massage that message to try to get the alliances to win, so you can win matches and qualify, and make sure that we all show gracious professionalism in first? How do you do that?
That's a good question.
It's a doozy.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when we got to our event here, Kettering week 2 there, I had some parents from that had came over from another team, and it was a much larger team. So the very first thing they said was, you got to get out there and you got to start pit scouting. You got to, find out the capabilities of the other robots. Well, you get into the first couple rounds of Friday, you find out that pit scouting, at least, in my experience, doesn't really mean too much. If you're in the first event with these rookie teams, they're looking at the robot and saying, hey, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. You get out on the field and, they can't. They're not capable of it, or if they are capable of it, they're at a much slower pace than what the game is going to be. So that's what you're going to be up against with 15 rookie teams. Is they're going to be very excited to be there. They're going to be very excited about the capabilities of the robot, but it hasn't been tested yet. So even if you've got a small team, and unfortunately I've got a very small team. Whenever we were working on the robot, my whole team was in the pit working on the robot. We didn't have anybody to sit in the stands. So you need to put papers in your parents' hands and say, you need to tell us which robots aren't standing up. You need to tell us what robots are really doing a great job. While I like to be able to say, you watch this robot, you watch this robot. Quite often you don't have enough people to do that with a rookie team. So they're going to just have to look over the whole field and say, hey, that robot is really great at climbing. That robot's really great at putting blocks through the hole, and then bring those notes back to the drive team. You're going to have eyes in the seats. You're going to have eyes in the seats. You're going to be in the pit working on a robot. You're not going to be able to watch and figure out what happens.
Right. And Chris, I have an idea, right? I just had an epiphany. So I agree with Scott that sometimes pit scouting isn't a true depiction of what a robot can do, because you need to see it on the field. However, if you can get the information to your other people that are in the event with you, then I think you're better off. So what if rookie teams made a pit scouting sheet that they made available in their pits for teams to come read about their robot, right? Say these are the capabilities of the robot. Everyone's going to understand as a rookie we're untested because that's an assumption because we're rookies. But what if a team puts out like a one-pager that says, this is the robot, these are the things we focused on for this event, and hand that out? Do you think that'll help out the other teams that are in that event?
Yeah, it sure does. That's something that the House of Cards has done for, I think, about 6 years. The kids didn't get that paperwork finished this year, but we usually produce a trifold pamphlet about our robot, with a lot of the basics of what's in the drivetrain and what our capabilities are. And it's actually, for you guys as a rookie team, I would go a little further and say that pamphlet is also a fantastic method for having your kids speak to the judges, because the kids can be, they're a little unsure of themselves sometimes, but if they can refer themselves to the pamphlet and hand a pamphlet to the judges, that's also pretty cool. But I wanted to mention that listening to one of the podcasts, I think it was around 48 to 50 somewhere, you and Brandi Bolinger were talking about how the EngiNerdz had sort of simplified their scouting. And I really encouraged my team to do that this year. I don't think a lot of the attributes of the robot, such as the type of chassis, gear ratios, wheels, I don't think any of that really mattered much at our first event. The only thing really mattered was, is the robot a dedicated exchange switch type bot? Is it scale capable? But then, as Scott mentioned, what really started to become apparent as we went through the matches is there's an amazing difference in speed. A team can say that they're a scale bot, but can they put up 1 or 2 cubes a match, or can they actually do 6, 7, 8? And that's really the thing that you're trying to watch for when you're scouting, is because it's frankly a time-based game, and it's something new to First that we haven't had, at least since I've been involved, and it's really put a different dynamic on it. And I think that has really changed the way we're scouting. We're trying to look for fast, consistent bots. And then definitely as we're heading toward week 6, I mentioned in eliminations, we were actually starting to run out of cubes and starve for cubes. So in addition to being fast, we're going to start to look at robots that can position the cubes more accurately instead of having unstable, crazy piles on top of the scale. The ones that can help organize them along the way are going to allow more cubes to go up there. So that could also become a very big factor.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but I remember seeing a couple matches at Kettering Week 2 where it wasn't the amount of cubes that were on each side of the scale, but how they were stacked really took the scale over. And I saw a match or two where it was won just by putting. So I think you're right, putting them in the right places. And both Chris, you and Scott are both scale bots, which I know, and I'm a dedicated vault bot because that's what I wanted to focus on for my first year. So, Scott, how valuable is a vault bot, do you believe?
Oh, I want to say one thing before I answer that, because when you're at a match and you're watching things go on at a match, you're mostly dedicated to your robot. If you only watch the matches that you are at, you're going to miss a ton. This past weekend, we sat there and watched the Gaylord event and the Milford events live on the First and Michigan channels there. And we saw things from that standpoint that we never saw in the match, because you can watch both ends of the field. You can watch what the other robots are doing. And we saw some pretty amazing vault bots. I mean, they were just filling them up. The quicker you can get those vaults filled, the faster you can move on, to actually other things in the game. So, you can get your boost and you can get your force in place, and then know that levitate's going to be there for you at the end. It takes a lot off the minds of the drivers if you've got a great vault bot. The best games that I saw were where every robot had a job, and you had one robot at the far end of the field, maintaining a lock on the opponent's switch. You had a high bot doing the scale, and you had one either chucking boxes, to the vault, or putting them into the switch on your end of the field, maintaining that in your favor. So that was to me the best trifecta, was where each robot had a place and they weren't getting in each other's ways, and making sure that vault was full.
And Chris, I'm sure you're going to agree with that.
Oh yeah, certainly. And I would also add just a little extension to that. The way Scott described it is exactly how we tried to play it. Everybody had their position that they should play, but you should always have like a second position. So if we were doing the scale, I, as the coach, was trying to watch our switch to understand if we were falling behind or in danger of losing it. So there were times when I would have my drive team peel off, dump a couple on our switch, and then go back to scale. And the same thing with the dedicated switch and exchange bot. They need to find that balance. They need to have awareness. And I think that's where the greater teams are going to come out, is that awareness that, you can't be so focused on the exchange and the vault, to the detriment of losing your switch. So you got to have that field awareness, and that's what's going to make the great teams and the great alliances.
So I do have a retort to that, Chris. As a vault bot, and how we've designed it, and we're thinking the way we're going to play it is we maximize the amount of points that we can give to our team by putting the 9 cubes through the exchange, which is 45 points.
Yeah.
If we will watch, and if our switch is in jeopardy of being taken over, then we can go over to the portal, grab a cube, because we have a conveyor on the top of ours, grab a cube and dump it into the switch. We will always look at that, because we know that we have a lot of time to put 9 cubes through the vault. There's teams that can do that in I've seen things like 35, 40 seconds. They're doing that quickly.
Yeah.
We're not going to be that good, because, well, I'm not saying we're not going to be that good in case my kids are listening. I'm just saying that we're a rookie team, and it's not realistic that we'd be that fast. But they have to be aware and listen to the coach, because the coach is watching the field, and the driver and the operator are doing the abilities of the robot. So
Absolutely. Yep.
I think we all have to be in tandem with each other, kind of speaking the same language. And Scott said he said something brilliant. All 3 teams need to pick a piece of the game and focus on it. And I think we haven't seen that yet. At least I have not seen that in a match where I was there to watch it. And hopefully at some point we start seeing that, because I think that's where we're going to see the record numbers, or really, 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 close matches, if both teams can do that, or both alliances can do that. Maybe not to week 6 or state championships. I don't know what that is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, give yourself some credit. Your team is going to get faster every match. I always coach my drive team that I want smoothness before they're fast. I would rather have them make sure that they get the cube in the exchange every time than fumble it 3 times because they're trying to go too fast. And then as they get smooth, then you can coach them not to waste any motion. Don't drive further than they need to. Don't turn the longest turn the shortest turn, things like that. And before you know it, they'll be fast. They'll get faster every match as they build confidence. So, you guys will do fine. Just, focus and execute, and you should be good.
So, Scott, what does your team do in between, events? That's one thing we haven't thought about yet, because we're just focused on trying to get to the event for week 4, right? What do teams do in between the events to iterate and get better?
Well, we take our second robot and practice. We were actually in the lab all day yesterday, most of the day today, We have actually got quite a bit of stuff we're going to add on when we go out of bag there. We've got our 30 pounds worth easy. Add some good functions. Our programmer's been working with the autonomous modes and working on PID in his programming there, making some dramatic improvements. And then the biggest thing is getting our driver time. We've got a hunk of competition carpet in our work area, and he is we actually set up an obstacle course kind of based on the layout of the switch and the scale on the floor, and we were making him maneuver around them, pick up boxes, and then deliver them back to the vault that we've got built.
And Chris, do you guys do the same thing in between competitions?
Yeah, certainly. We also have a practice bot, and we actually had to steal some parts off of our practice bot to finish our competition bot. Because we had the air powered elevator to go up to the scale, we had a pretty complicated system to what we call dress the robot with the air lines and the electrical out to our end effector, our claw. So that cabling was pretty complicated, and we got it finished on our practice bot, and then we basically built the same thing for our competition bot. So we're trying to get our P-bot running again, our practice bot, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a lot of driver time on it, run through the cycles. I think we're in pretty good shape this time that we didn't break any parts, and we don't feel that the robot performed badly. So I don't think there's a lot of robot componentry that we're going to try and upgrade. We did try to do the triple climb. We got really close a number of times, frustratingly close. We had some issues with the cables that hold up our arms, and we're trying to make our hook engage a little bit faster. So I think those are the two continuous improvement areas that we're going after. But the biggest thing for us is just making sure that our autonomous reads the FMS. And I think if we could just make our autonomous perform the way it's supposed to, that alone is going to make a huge difference in our performance.
Chris, as you sign up, please tell us again what team you're with and what the next competition you guys are going to be at.
Yeah, once again, I'm Chris Purdy from Team 3534, the House of Cards. You can find us on the web at team3534.com or on Facebook at Davis and House of Cards. Our next stop is Maryville, week 6.
Okay, Scott, you're up.
Hey, it's Scott Stap from Team FridgeBot. Our next event we're headed to is at Lake Superior University in Sault Ste. Marie, April 6th. If you're up in the area, stop in and say hi. Otherwise, watch us on the internet.
Up now is the RoboZone Rookie Rundown.
My partner in crime has been missing, and she is now back after a week of hiatus, and we totally understand why you didn't come on last week, Brandi. Robot hangovers are a real thing, but I have the infamous Brandi Bolinger. How you doing, Brandi?
Great, Pete. I'm so glad to be back this week. Got a lot that went on in week 2 of events, and I can't wait to share a few things with you.
Nice. So we talked a little bit before we got online, and we talked about what we could cover for rookies going forward, and some of the ideas were getting ready for states, if you qualified for states, the Rookie All-Star Award and such. So what is the first subject you'd like to cover tonight, Brandi?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of teams, rookie teams especially, go to events, and winning the Rookie All-Star Award is such a shock for them. And, you're expecting to go there, and you've had such a long, rough build season, or maybe you haven't, but you go there and you see all of these great teams there, and then they start to announce the script, and all of a sudden it starts sounding like all of the things that your team does. Pretty soon you're really excited, and you realize that you're winning the Rookie All-Star Award. And if you're in the state of Michigan, that award is an auto qualifier for you to apply for that award at the Michigan State Championship. It doesn't qualify your robot, but it does qualify your team to compete for that award. If you are at a regional and you're listening to this new Rookie All-Star Award, you automatically qualify for your respective world championship. So it's a really, really exciting thing, and it can also be a really overwhelming thing for a team to win the Rookie All-Star. I know back in 2008 when our team won it, we were amazed, like, what did we do to impress the judges so much? So what I do want to talk a little bit about tonight is recognizing what the judges saw as special to you and finding a way to continue to speak about that. Because if you are in Michigan, or I'm not sure how the other district systems handle the Rookie All-Star Award, but if you're in Michigan, you will get to go in front of a judging panel and give a 7-minute presentation with a 5 to 7 minute Q&A afterward. So how you choose to approach this presentation is 100% up to you. I've seen students go in with as much as like a rehearsed skit, a rehearsed way to tell your story, just kind of like a simple conversation. And then I've also seen teams go in with absolutely no plan, but to just talk about what is inspiring them at that minute. And I've seen all three of those approaches win at the Michigan State Championship. So, and at the championship, when you get there eventually, there is no interview. It's just the judges coming around to you in the pits and talking to you about your team. So in both of these cases, I think, Pete, the most important thing to point out is what makes you special and what makes you unique. When I first started coming on the calls quite a while ago, we talked a lot about creating a handout or creating pit displays or something that showcases something that is unique about your team. And see, when the judges talk to you, if you have the script or maybe the award ceremony was recorded or anything like that, you can go back through and see what did they say about you? What did they think was special and unique about you to have you achieve that award?
I'm jealous. I know Team Hollywood, Jeremy Callahan's team, has won the Rookie All-Star Award. I'm
Yes, they
severely
did.
jealous of them. But this week I'm competing for the first time, so maybe I can get it. Maybe our team will get that award. Very excited.
And I think it all goes back to your students being knowledgeable and passionate. So when the judges come up to talk to you, they don't want to talk to the mentors. They want to talk to the students, right? And no matter if you have a big team or a small team, I mean, Team 7211, Team Hollywood, they only have a handful of students on their team. And those kids work their tails off that weekend, and they were really inspiring when they were competing at Kettering 1. I was there. I saw them, and it's honestly all about passion and inspiration and being able to effectively communicate that to the judges. So when you're coming up with your presentation, if you are in Michigan, you can send 3 students in and 1 mentor to watch, and who has to be silent, which is very difficult. I had the pleasure of being in our team's chairman's interview 2 weekends ago at the St. Joe's district. And it's very hard to sit there and watch your students go up in front of the judges and be really nervous and maybe forget their lines or forget what they're going to say or get emotional in front of the judges. But that's what this is all about. Showing that emotion, being able to solve a problem when you face it, and expressing who you are.
Without being a drama queen and putting on a show in another way.
No fake tears.
No fake tears. This isn't a play.
Exactly.
It's real life. So, and we're talking about this, the presentation you're talking about is actually at our championship for Michigan, right? You're talking about the Michigan State Championship.
Correct.
Not what they would be, because there is no interview process for our district. It is just something that is awarded to you, correct?
Correct. The judges walk around. There are actually either a pair or a small group of judges that are assigned to judge the Rookie All-Star Award, and they'll be traveling to each of the rookie pits and trying to learn as much as they can about your team. They're going to be watching your team coming on and off the field. They're going to be watching your team during matches. They're going to be watching your team in the stands just to kind of see, is your team a rookie team that other people should look up to? Not necessarily saying you have to, start a team in Zimbabwe. It's at the time, are your students inspired? Are your students working hard? Is everyone there doing this for the right reason? And I think that's one of the most inspiring things to the judges.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, very much so. And I have started to talk to the kids about, judges are going to come up to you, and rookies are very hard hard to express or trying to show them of what's actually going to happen. So I took my team in front of the school board last week, and we had to give a presentation so that we could be awarded for our no-way event. We're going to Battle Creek for week 6. So I use that opportunity for them to bounce questions off the kids, and they came out glowingly, and we did record all that. So that's something we can use in a presentation later.
What a great prep for them. And I think probably going in front of the judges are going to have very similar questions than that your Board of Education probably did, because the Board of Education just probably wants to see and wants to know what your team is up to, and the judges are going to be the exact same way. Make it a conversation. That's what the judges want to see. They'll be wearing gloves.
I think they're going to be less nervous in front of strangers that are judges than the superintendent who is, throwing really hard fastballs at them as questions and seeing if they could react to it. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So what's the next subject you want to cover, Brandi, tonight?
So a lot of teams that I've talked to are very concerned about either raising money to go to their state championship in the district medal, or for a couple teams at the regional level, raising money to go to the championship. So say you win the Rookie All-Star, say you qualify for states here in Michigan, it's another $4,000 to $5,000 for you to go to another event. Where to come up with the money for this? So my advice to you is to put together some kind of budget or business plan, or come up with a list of needs that your team has and approach your community. It's amazing when students are inspired and you've earned your way to do something and you've accomplished these great things, especially as a rookie team. Talking about the fact that it's the first year that you've done robotics and you've qualified for states, right? Think about it when a sports team goes to states. It's like this huge thing. Now you as a first-year robotics team have qualified for states. Communities tend to be incredibly supportive of these people. It's very easy, say, if your team needs a new laptop or your team needs $400 worth of parts from a robot supply company, having a list of those items to go to a company instead of just saying, hi, would you like to donate to our team? You can say things like, our team is looking for this $600 laptop. Can you sponsor us for this $600 laptop? And they might say, yeah, here's $600. Or they might say, well, we can give you $300, but then you find another $300 person to cover the other half. Or maybe you get super lucky and you say, we need this $600 laptop, and they say, here's the $1,000 because we know you're going to need $400 more worth of stuff. Or maybe you're looking to cover that $4,000 fee to go to the Michigan State Championship, and you can go to local businesses and say, would you like to be a $500 partner of our robotics team to help us get to the Michigan State Championship? When you're asking for money for very specific things, people tend to be very supportive.
And
$4,000.
Something I'm really worried about as far as that fee is concerned, and the travel cost, because Saginaw is nowhere near where my team is. So I mean, we'd have to think about doing lodging as well. So. Yeah.
And lodging is a whole nother beast especially with First Housing and First Michigan Housing and all the different teams going. I mean, there's 120 teams at the Michigan State Championship, all in Saginaw, which is not really a huge town. And you've got the neighboring Bay City right there to start looking into hotel rooms and things like that. But, one way that you can save money is looking into food. Saginaw Valley State University, where the Michigan State Championship is held, does allow you to bring outside food in. So, go to the grocery store, pick up a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and a jar of jelly, or no nut butter if you've got allergies on your team, and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch one day. Try to find ways where you can cut costs. We'll make it a lot more affordable for you. But $4,000 sounds like a lot of money until you break it down into 8 $500 sponsors.
Right. That's a good approach. I didn't think about it that way, Brandi.
Yeah, asking 8 people for $500 is a lot easier than thinking of it as one $4,000 lump sum.
What other things do rookie teams have to prepare themselves if they qualify for states, both the robot and for All-Star? Because we talked about Rookie All-Star Award. Now we're diving into the robot being qualified, so you have to pay that additional fee. And I know that some of us here in Michigan that got the grant from our illustrious governor, Governor Snyder, I can't give him enough credit for giving us that grant. But I know that helps a little bit. And you talked about fundraising. Well, what other things do teams need to worry about?
One thing that, I mean, even looking forward to states, and even if you've not competed yet, or maybe you still have one more of your district or regional events to go, is thinking about your robot and looking at the game, like how the game has evolved, how the way that the game is played has changed, and whether or not the design that you originally came up with is still a valuable contribution to your alliance, or are there changes in play that have occurred that you need to be iterating and improving for? So, like us at our first event, we didn't have a climber on our robot, and now we're in the process of making one because we see that as the game is evolving, that is something that we're going to need. We were semifinalists at our first event. We were the 4th seed alliance captain. And so, I mean, we did well, obviously. We went up against Team 2767, who's reigning world champions, and they ended up winning the event with the Green Engineers, who've also been to Einstein. So we definitely had our work cut out for us. But looking at how those teams like that play the game and see what needs to be evolved. Now, I'm not saying that first-year teams or second-year teams or third-year teams, or, I mean, hey, even us as an 11th-year team need to be competing against teams like Strike Force, but you're going to be competing with teams like Strike Force. So looking at these teams and saying, what can I do to be a contributing member of an alliance with a robot of that caliber? So maybe you have a arm pickup, simple iterations. Can you make it faster? Can you make it stronger? Can you make it more reliable? If you are going to be a switch bot, can you practice with your robot at your next events on Thursday or using your unbagged time so that your cycles can be faster and more accurate? What can you do to improve your team as the game is changing? And being able to watch different events online, watching your RoboZone show, taking into consideration what Jim and Dan are saying, things like that, looking at what other people are doing and how you can adapt to that is so incredibly important.
What if I have a retort to that, Brandi. What if you're comfortable, if you guys earned, okay, let's use 20 or 7211. Let's use the Team Hollywood, right? We were both there. We watched them. They were by far one of the best, if not the best vault bot that was at that competition, and that's why they got picked where they got picked.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree with that 100%.
Right. If I'm Jeremy Callahan, if I can do the vault very well, what if it's not broken? Don't try to fix it. That keeps ringing through my head. I can improve cycle times, but if I don't want to change anything, there's always a fear that if you change something, it could screw up and you're not going to be as good as you were in your original competition where you got that award. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I think the thing that you can improve there is cycle times. And I think that as the game progresses, if you can finish off that pile of cubes in 10 seconds faster than the next best vault bot, then that's going to put you above. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to states and there's 5 vault bots to choose from, what are they going to choose also? Like, what is going to be their sort criteria? And honestly, it's probably going to be who can get the most amount of cycles in. So on the EngiNerdz, we actually don't count. We do count, but our first sort is not how many cubes you do, but how many cycles you do. So we're looking at how effectively do you use your time so that in the time that you have left over, what else can you be doing? So say the average VaultBot team clears the power cube pile in 90 seconds, and you've practiced so many times that your driver is so natural with the controls and they can line up to the exchange so quickly that they can get that pile done in 60 seconds. Now they have the rest of the match to go play defense, to move cubes away from your opponents to do so many things that can be helpful to your alliance. Because you have to remember, in this game, preventing your opposing alliance from scoring points is almost as valuable and sometimes even more valuable than your alliance themselves scoring points.
Right. That makes total sense in this game. I
So-
mean, it's capture the flag. Right.
Yep. So without any iteration and changes to your robot, simply being better at driving it and being more comfortable with the controls and improving your cycle times can be an iteration in itself.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brandi. I'm going to make a note of that right now. I'm writing it down. Cycle times.
Getting your
What else can we do?
sixer is one of the most important things, I think. So, I think with the long season coming up, it can be very overwhelming and very long and strenuous. Just making sure that your students and your mentors on your team are well taken care of, that everybody has enough food to eat and enough drinks to drink and enough Gatorade to have, and that everybody is taking rests and being safe in the pits, I think is probably something that every team, rookie and veteran, needs to take into consideration at every event that they go to. So just moving forward, making sure, if the mentors are listening, that if your students look tired and hungry, make sure that they can get something to eat. I know the pit crew on our team, they work their tails off and they'll say, I'll eat in 5 minutes and I'll eat in 5 minutes. And pretty soon it's dinner time and they still haven't finished their lunch. So just being there for your teammates, very important.
Kids got to monitor the mentors, make sure they're taking in fluids and eating as well. So
That's right. Yep. And you should always have a bottle of water on you or Gatorade on you at all points in time, and just take good care of yourself so that it ends up being a great and successful season for everyone.
So, Brandi, you've given us some really good pieces of advice as a rookie throughout the season and today, so I thank you for that. Where is the EngiNerdz headed next? What is your next competition?
Our next event is the Troy District in Michigan at Athens High School during week 5. We are very excited. It's going to be a very exciting event. There's definitely some top shelf teams there that are going to give the EngiNerdz a run for their money. We're very excited for that. And then we are also fortunate enough this year that we qualified, or we were drawn for a 3rd district. So we'll be heading to the Forest Hills District in Grand Rapids, Michigan during week 6. And then last weekend when we competed at the St. Joe's District, we were selected as the Chairman's Award recipients. So we have qualified for the Michigan State Championship already. So we'll be heading there week 7.
So we may not hear from you again. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get you on a couple more times before you. Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
That's 5, 6, 7. Yeah, and if you qualify for Worlds, that's 8, right?
Well, there's a week off in between there, but the EngiNerdz, just like everybody else, we have to raise money for all of our events. So we actually spend the Saturday, about 16 hours worth of that Saturday in between states and worlds, doing a can drive. And we usually raise enough money for all of our students to be able to go to Worlds by doing a can drive. So This Grand Blanc that we live in is a very big city. And I mean, Pete, you lived here for quite a while. That, Grand Blanc has a phenomenally supportive community when you just get your face out there and get your name out there. And every year the community has pulled through for us with tens of thousands of cans. So,
and literally tens of thousands. I remember that, and something we borrowed from the EngiNerdz and implemented in my team. We're having one the weekend of states. If we make states, then we'll push it off the weekend after states. But we did adopt that from you guys.
That's when we're doing ours, is the weekend after states before Worlds.
Nice. Well, Brandi, I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. I'm going to let you get some rest because you have a crazy schedule coming. I want to thank you for coming on again. We did miss you. I did get a couple emails asking me when Brandi was going to be back on. So you were missed when you were gone. I'm just using that as.
It was the trifecta of robot hangovers that weekend. I mean, between daylight saving, the robot, and for those of you who don't know, Clint and I are expecting an EngiNerdz 2.0 this September.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So it was like the trifecta of exhaustion last week. So I pray that all of you guys take better care of yourselves, get more rest, so that you don't have to spend 2 days after the events recovering. That's my number one piece of advice, I guess. Take care of yourself so you don't have to take Monday off work or off school to recover.
Well, that's an amazing last piece of advice as we sign off for this week, Brandi. How can we follow the EngiNerdz online?
The EngiNerdz, we are active on Facebook and Twitter at Team2337, or you can follow us at Team2337.com.
Up next is the RoboZone Team of the Week.
For this week's Team of the Week, RoboZone has picked Strikeforce, Team 2767. Strikeforce is an amazing team. They are very down to earth, and they help out anyone that has any issues at any competition I've ever been at. So for this week, we would like to give Team of the Week to Strikeforce, Team 2767. Congratulations on being Team of the Week. And with that ends the 53rd episode of the RoboZone podcast. You can follow us on SoundCloud, Google Music, and iTunes podcasts. So we look forward to talking to you next week. For all those teams that are out there competing in week 4, good luck, and may the scales and switches swing to your favor. Have a great week.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world. Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.